Have you ever felt completely invisible, as if no one really saw you, no one knew your name, and no one understood what you carry inside? Perhaps tonight you are crying alone, wondering if God even notices you.
If that's you, stay with me until the end, because what you are about to discover in Luke May 19th changed the way you see everything. There's a moment in the Bible, in the story of Jesus and Zacchaeus, that most people read quickly, but hidden there is something profoundly personal.
It's not just another biblical story explained, it's a revelation.
Because before Jesus says a single word, before any conversation even begins, there is a look,
and that look carries meaning, identity, and purpose. Zacchaeus was no ordinary man.
He was rejected, judged, and defined by his reputation. In that culture, people like him were avoided, labeled, and ostracized.
No one cared about his name, only his mistakes. Perhaps you have felt something similar. Have you ever been seen only by your past, your failures, or what others say about you?
God sees your heart, even when the world does not. But this is where things get powerful. In this encounter between Jesus and Zacchaeus, something unexpected happens. Jesus doesn't treat him the way the crowd treats him.
Jesus sees beyond appearances.
He sees identity where others only see guilt.
And then,
he does something that no one can explain.
He calls Zacchaeus by name. How did Jesus know his name without ever having been introduced? What does this mean for you, right now, at this very moment? What if this message from God today is more personal than you imagine? And perhaps, as you listen to this, something inside you is beginning to awaken, as if this story isn't just about Zacchaeus, but about you too. Because deep down, we all want to be truly seen, not for what we appear to be, but for who we really are. And when that truth begins to touch the heart, it's hard to ignore. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. Was it the feeling of being invisible, or realizing that God might be watching you even when no one else is?
Sometimes, putting it into words can begin to heal something inside.
And more than that,
your comment might reach someone who is going through the exact same pain but hasn't yet been able to express it. If this type of message resonates with you, if it's helping you in any way, click like, because that shows YouTube that this content needs to reach more people who are going through the same thing.
Your participation here really makes a difference.
And if you want to continue receiving messages like this, that go beyond the surface and reveal the heart of God in a simple yet profound way, subscribe to the Jesus Beyond Words channel.
Because the truth is, this channel only grows when people like you decide to be a part of it, and together, we can bring this message to those who need to hear it most.
Now, going back to that very specific moment in Luke 19, because what happens after that look from Jesus is even more surprising.
To understand the true impact of that moment, you need to see what was happening behind the scenes of that scene. Zacchaeus wasn't just a curious man trying to see Jesus.
He was a tax collector, someone who, at that time, carried an enormous social burden. He was seen as a traitor, someone who worked for the system and exploited his own people. His reputation spoke louder than any possibility of redemption. In the mindset of that society, people like Zacchaeus were already defined. There was no room for transformation, nor for a new story.
He wasn't seen as someone with potential, purpose, or a future. He was the mistake. He was the label.
And this creates a hidden truth that few people realize. When a person is constantly defined by what they have done, they begin to believe that they can never be different.
Perhaps this journey sounds familiar to you. Have you ever felt that, no matter what you do, people only see your past? That your decisions have trapped you in a version of yourself that you no longer recognize? That was exactly where Zacchaeus was.
On the outside, he had position, money, control. But inside, there was an emptiness that no achievement could fill.
And then something happens that completely changes the direction of this story.
In the midst of the crowd, in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of so many voices, a moment arises that no one expected. Because in those days, tax collectors weren't called by name, they were labeled, ignored, avoided. But at that specific moment, something breaks that pattern. And this is where everything starts to change. Because what Jesus does next isn't just a gesture, it's a revelation with a direct impact on how you see your own identity today.
Comment below, this makes sense to me.
What happens at that moment is subtle, but it carries a gigantic impact. In the middle of the crowd, with so many people trying to get his attention, waiting for a word, a miracle, a sign,
Jesus does something completely different from what everyone expected. He stops. It's not a random detail. There is intention in it. There is awareness. In the midst of the movement, the noise, and the pressure, he slows down.
And that, in itself, already reveals a powerful shift in mindset. what is urgent for the world is not always what is important to God.
And then, instead of looking around, instead of focusing on the crowd, Jesus raises his eyes. This gesture changes everything, because while everyone was looking ahead, at the obvious, at what seemed relevant, Jesus looks up. He breaks with common logic. He sees what no one was paying attention to.
Behind the scenes of that moment, a silent revelation is happening. God is not moved by external pressure, but by inner truth. And there, perched in a tree, trying only to observe from afar, is Zacchaeus. Someone who didn't want to be seen, someone who had probably already decided that his place was on the margins, outside the center, away from prying eyes.
But Jesus sees, not superficially, not as just another face lost in the crowd. He truly sees, he recognizes, he identifies. And here is the hidden truth that transforms everything. Jesus didn't see a sinner, he saw a person.
Before any judgment, before any label, before any history, there was recognition. This breaks patterns, changes internal decisions, and begins a completely new journey. Because being seen in this way changes how you see yourself too.
And it is precisely at this point that something even deeper happens, something that goes beyond a simple glance and enters the territory of revelations that redefine identity. Write this down, I'm on this journey too. What happens next is not only surprising, it completely breaks human logic. After looking, after stopping, after seeing someone no one else saw, Jesus does something no one expected. He calls Zacchaeus by name. And here an inevitable, almost uncomfortable question arises. How did he know?
There was no presentation, no introduction, no prior contact of any kind. Behind the scenes of this scene, there is a revelation that goes beyond what is visible. This is not coincidence, it is not chance, it is not luck. There is intention, there is knowledge, there is something deeper happening. Because when Jesus calls Zacchaeus by name, he is not merely identifying someone.
He is revealing identity, and that changes everything.
In a society where people were defined by labels, where past decisions determined someone's worth, where the collective mentality did not allow for transformation,
Jesus interrupts this cycle with a simple, yet powerful action.
While everyone called Zacchaeus a traitor, corrupt, unworthy,
Jesus calls him by name.
And this is the hidden truth that many people ignore. God doesn't need you to introduce yourself to know who you are. He doesn't depend on your public persona, your image, your reputation, or your attempts to appear as something else.
He knows you even before the world begins to define you.
Before your choices, before your mistakes, before your falls, there was already a profound knowledge of who you truly are. This changes how you view your own journey.
Because if God knows your true identity, then perhaps what you believe about yourself isn't the whole truth.
Perhaps there's a version of you that hasn't yet been revealed, one that isn't stuck in the past, but connected to purpose. And it is precisely here that this story gains a new level of depth, because calling him by name was only the beginning of something that goes beyond recognition. Write this down. He knows me.
It ceases to be just an old story and begins to directly affect your journey.
Perhaps, deep down, you are exactly like Zacchaeus at that moment, hidden, trying to observe life from afar, without fully engaging, afraid of being seen for who you really are. There is a silent feeling that no one understands, no one notices, no one truly sees. And, little by little, this mentality shapes decisions, behaviors, and even the way you position yourself in the world. But here's the twist that changes everything. The same Jesus who stopped, looked, and called Zacchaeus, continues to do so today.
This didn't stay in the past. This wasn't an isolated event.
There's a living truth behind this scene that still generates transformation, because God sees beyond appearances. He's not limited to what you show, nor to what others say about you. There's a deeper, more precise, truer gaze.
And when you begin to understand this, something changes within you.
Because God sees the heart.
He sees intentions, silent pains, thoughts that no one else knows.
That which you could never explain has already been understood. That which you thought you needed to hide has already been seen without judgment. This breaks down a huge internal barrier, because it reveals that you were never truly invisible. And perhaps the greatest revelation here is this: you are not forgotten. Even in moments when everything seems still, confusing, or directionless, there is still purpose being built behind the scenes.
There is an impact being formed, a transformation happening, even if you can't yet clearly perceive it. Before you even speak to God, He has already recognized you.
And when this truth starts to make sense, a new perspective emerges, because being recognized is only the beginning of something that will unfold in surprising ways. Comment below. This makes sense to me. When you put all these elements together, the story ceases to be just about an encounter and becomes a revelation about how God moves in your own journey.
Zacchaeus climbed a tree to see Jesus, but, in the end, he discovered something that completely changes the perspective. He was already being seen all along.
And that carries a silent but powerful impact.
Because many times we think we are searching, trying, chasing after answers, when, in fact,
there is already a directed gaze, there is already attention focused on us.
This is a profound shift in mindset, because it's not just about seeking God, but about realizing that there's a movement happening behind the scenes, an intention that precedes any decision you make. While Zacchaeus tried to observe from afar, without drawing attention, without exposing himself, Jesus had already made the decision to stop, look, and connect. There's a hidden truth in this. You don't need to shout to be noticed by God. You don't need to prove anything to deserve that gaze. It simply happens. And perhaps, if you honestly look at the moment you are living now, you will notice some signs of this same dynamic. Situations, thoughts, even this very video, none of this arises by chance. There is an alignment, a construction happening, even if you can't fully understand it yet. This changes the way you interpret your story, your pain, your choices, because what seemed random begins to make sense. If this video reached you, perhaps it's not a coincidence. Perhaps something is being revealed here that goes beyond words, something that directly touches your reality and begins to reposition the way you see everything around you. And when you begin to realize this, a new awareness opens up, because being seen is only the beginning of something that will deepen in a way you may not expect. Write this down: nothing is by chance. And if you've made it this far, you may have already realized that this wasn't just another message, it was something that reached you at the right time. And that's exactly why I want to extend a simple invitation. If this type of content resonates with your life, if it helps you see beyond the obvious and better understand these revelations that often go unnoticed, subscribe to the Jesus Beyond Words channel. That way, you can continue walking with me on this journey, receiving messages that truly make a difference in your daily life. And so I know you stayed with me until the end. Write in the comments, "This message was for me." That already creates a connection between us, and also shows that you're not alone in this. If at any point in this video something truly touched you, please leave a like, not just for the video itself, but for everything this message represented to you today. This helps this message reach other people who might need exactly this, just like you. And before you leave, there's a video here that continues along the same lines. It delves even deeper into this idea and might bring you a clarity you're perhaps still seeking. Click on it and continue reading.